Okay, so we are rolling now.
Oh,
I got things going. Look at that.
only like 40 minutes after we started fiddling around with the
I
settings.
think going from there not being a podcast to brainstorming a name of a podcast to putting together a logo of a podcast to now doing a podcast in like an hour and a half.
I know, but the fact that the creating of the logo took less time than setting up the microphones says something about...
Listen, okay? The podcast isn't called a hubris for nothing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hubris, a highly unsolicited book review for uninvested spouses. My name is Mark.
My name is Jess.
And we have been happily married for
5 years this year.
5 years this year, and together for 11
12.
years? 12 years.
2012.
Jesus.
2012. Wait, are we 5 years? What year did we get married in?
2019?
Yeah,
Good Lord,
so 5
this is a
years.
good start.
We've been together a long time, put it that way. And Mark, how many years of our relationship have I been reading?
Good. You know, as long as I've known you, you've been an avid fan of books, but really since we've settled into our own, you've, I don't know how to, I don't want to say you've had an unhealthy consumption of books, but just to give everyone a bit of perspective, I'm looking at Jess's story. I don't even know what this is. Story graph.
Yeah. It's great. It uses statistics basically to graph all your reading stuff.
Yeah, but it's June and you've read 213 books.
I know.
So anyways, I mean, like, this is what prompted our wonderful idea for this podcast.
We were driving in the car. It's Father's Day. And we were on our way to my in-laws. And we were talking about what we wanted to do if we were to do a podcast. And, you know, Mark has a lot of hobbies. So to narrow down one to do a podcast on that I would also be interested in, we'd have like 80 podcasts, and like each of them would have maybe like half an episode.
And I'm sure it would be 80 great 2-episode podcasts. Hey, I got really into microgreen growing, and listen, I bought the trays and they're in the garage, and that's good.
Yeah, he also has a metal detector. That's a story for another time. But my point is that Mark has many hobbies. And I basically have one, which is reading. So when we thought about what we could do a podcast
ravenous, uncontrollable reading.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's also scary sometimes.
How is it scary?
Well,
is it? No, I think it's intimidating.
Yes.
There
Intimidating.
You go. Yeah.
Yes. It's more, well, I've had conversations with you I feel like you haven't remembered because you were also listening to a book at the same time. So.
Yeah.
But that's, I guess you could, I mean, to be fair, I do that too, but that's just because I'm a bit of a space cadet.
It doesn't really matter what we have in our ears, whether it's a podcast, a TV show. There's always times where we're using our selective listening skills.
Yes, because the important thing is that we squeeze every moment of free time that we can as our beautiful, beautiful daughter rests her weary head.
Yeah,
because as soon as she's awake, we are on.
We have a 1.5-year-old who is the light of our lives, but also the extinguisher of that light. Love her to pieces, but I have very little me time, and the me time that I have, I usually spend reading, but tonight I spent it sitting in my reading nook, watch my husband set up for a podcast.
And strangely, that was like relaxing.
For you.
Yeah, you were just watching me being like, good Lord, you have a PhD, figure it out, dude. It's microphones. Mm-hmm. It's microphones and USB cables.
It's all right. We're here now.
Okay, we are here. And to give you all some context, as I mentioned, Jess has read 213 books this year.
We're halfway through the year. It's June 16th.
Yes, we are halfway through the year. It's an excellent time. So we're on track to hit about 450 this year, I think.
We'll see. My goal is 250 for the year, but I'm very close to that.
Are you going to read 40 more books in the next year?
I read like 50 books last month. So like it's very doable to double that. I could get maybe to 500. I don't want to set that goal for myself because I'll be upset if I don't meet it. But
I have no doubt you're going to crush 500.
I've been meaning to get to my TBR list for a really long time, and I'm making a dent in it, but it keeps growing. And what I forgot when I made my TBR list, I usually just put the first book in a series down, and sometimes books have multiple books in that, or multiple series have multiple books.
It's all right. Dear listener, it is 10:50 p.m. We are both just absolutely cooked after a beautiful Father's Day at my parents. But to get to the point 10 minutes into the podcast for the premise of this podcast. See, again, hubris that we would ever be coherent enough to do this. Yeah. Jess has read over 200 books so far, and I have gotten unsolicited reviews for every single one of them. And I have to admit, I'm always happy to listen. I love it. It's amazing, but I just felt, everyone should share in this. Because frankly, some of these plot lines are wild.
And
it's like when you see somebody who makes a sandwich, but it's just like one piece of bread they cut in half just to put like 14 pieces of salami in it because they just wanted an excuse to eat salami. The salami is smut. It's just smut.
I don't just read smut. I read thrillers. I read YA. I read books that are not just smut focused. I just tend to devour more smut focused books. Actually, it's really funny when you look at Storygraph, erotica is like very low on the
It's because nobody's publicly announcing on their Storygraph that they're reading erotica. Most people don't track that.
Yeah.
But besides the point, what we've decided is that since Jess has been reading so many books, we're going to talk out her unsolicited book reviews as I try to piece along the fragments of these wonderful stories.
Well, not all of them are wonderful. I've read some pretty crappy books.
Oh yes, we will absolutely be dunking on books.
And I also want to point out that a good book does not necessarily mean a good book. Like, if I enjoy a book, that is different from it being a good book, because a good book and an enjoyable book do not necessarily mean the same thing, because I can enjoy like hot garbage.
Yeah, okay, fair.
Right? Yeah. But
I feel like that's similar to like our taste when we watch anime. It's like,
exactly.
I don't always want to watch, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. That's a beautiful, wonderful anime, arguably one of the best. But sometimes I want to watch like a trashy, what was that one we watched? It was anything.
The Magic Girl one?
Yeah. Sugar Apple Fairy Tale.
Hey, that was good.
That was a good one. I'm sorry, that's not trash. But there are some that you just watch them and it's just the same thing. It's just an isekai. It's just like brought to another world. The mysterious, dangerous Duke falls in love with me. I'm trapped in his mansion in a marriage of convenience. And it's like,
I actually read some books like that.
Oh, and we'll get to that, reader. So, this will be, I think, a short episode.
Yeah.
But now I think you have an idea of the kind of content you can come to expect.
And I also want to point out that Mark and I fit the gamer husband, bookish wife trope pretty well. I'm currently sitting in my reading nook which is right next to Mark's gaming computer, so that we can actually spend some time together during the week. Because what we were finding is we were putting our daughter down for bed, and I was reading in bed, and he was playing his games in the office.
And I was like, we have a chair downstairs. I can bring the chair upstairs. And both of our minds, we were just like, what?
So smart. I mean, it's not the most comfortable chair in the world, so the reading nook will have to be upgraded at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it was my no-no's chair, so, you know.
It's older than I am.
I think it's older than both of us combined. But it has character, and that's what's important.
Yeah. It also looks like a classic reading chair. It is. It's basically a wingback chair. Isn't that what that's called?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's striped like the only kind of pattern you would ever find in a grandparent's house.
It's beige.
Oh, it's a beautiful. It's a piece of art.
Anyways, so our loose idea of how to do this is Mark will skim my recently read list, and you can pick a recently read or not so recently read, and he can read the summary and see what he thinks the book is about, and then I will actually tell you what the book is about and what I thought about it and what my review was and why I reviewed it that way.
And I will do my best not to razz Jess for her taste in books, because she has actually picked some very good books to read. And some of the plots do actually seem kind of fascinating. Personally, I must admit, I am more of a fan of the Black Company books or Steven Erikson. I like fantasy. I like intrigue, political. I really seem to enjoy books that follow a company of heroes, not just one hero, but a company of people who are all banded together, and all of them individually are not so good people, but together they're being a force for change, not even necessarily good in the world. So it always ends up being those ones sit well with me.
I just read the Black Witch Chronicles, and that's basically the summary of the Black Witch Chronicles, and you did not seem interested to read it, so
yeah, but okay, and we'll get to that, I guess. Good point. This is why we need to do this, because what I overheard from, I'm gonna super quick synopsis. What I understood from that series was Harry Potter level wizard duel ultimate prophecy, but then the trees are the ones that are also messing with the future. It's very confusing. There's a bunch of whack loads of different types of racism in that book.
Yep.
But I think it was dealt with. You seem to mention it was dealt with pretty well. So
I as the series goes on, it gets better. It's one of those series that grows, the characters grow with the number of books.
Well, we're getting off topic. This is just the introductory episode, but this kind of witty repartee is the kind of thing you can expect from listening into Hubris. Mm-hmm. So, Jess, you can give our characteristic sign off that we will do every episode to be consistent with this one.
Wait, are we done?
Yeah. And
Why?
that's it.
We
Thanks,
haven't done
reader.
anything.
Thanks, reader.